Today we are watching Life of a Plant, publication date 1949. This might be black and white then. Sorry to you guys in advance if it is. Life of a Plant by the Encyclopedia Britannica, 1949. Beautiful animation of particles and plants, time-lapse of seeds growing. All right, that is all we have to go on, but I'm excited. This should be good. Back in the day when this was just all like one card that they had to hang in front of the camera, that's just like, you can see it moving and everything. Oh, but it does look like it's in color, not black and white. So let's just, fingers crossed it stays that way. Let's read these guys' names. In collaboration with R.O. Freeland, Ph.D., Northwestern University. Technical collaboration by John Nash Ott Jr. out of Winnetka, Illinois.
Here is a pea plant growing. We have speeded up the action by time-lapse photography so that we can see in a few seconds the growth that takes weeks in nature.
Honestly, this must have been absolutely nuts to see back in the day. Back in 1949, to see sped up footage of a pea plant growing, like in real time, like you could see it happening right before your eyes. This must have been such amazing footage at the time. It's hard to even describe. I know everyone's camera can do a time lapse now, but like to have figured it out back then and to get a shot of a plant growing like so naturally like this, it really must have been amazing. Still is amazing. Especially because it's moving. Like this is not an easy shot to get. Now that I'm thinking about it, like the camera looks like it's a handheld camera. Like if you watch this whole scene play out, like it's moving the whole time. But it's not just like, for time lapses, you get jitter, right? Like if you move it between one shot to the next, the whole shot, jitters. But this is not jittering. This feels like somebody is holding the camera for like months on end filming this. I don't know how they did this, but this is a really remarkable shot.
In this film, we shall study the life cycle of the pea plant, a representative green flowering plant.
And the background is still like perfectly white. Like again, a difficulty in filming this is that you're gonna have light changing day, night, and all that. They got it so perfect so early. Like somehow like nothing is changing. It looks like flawless. I can't commend them enough just for this one shot. We're not even a minute in and I can't stop talking about this shot. Also, it's unbroken. This is like, they haven't cut. This is like one take. I don't know how they did this. Oh, okay, there it goes. It cut.
The seed, containing the beginning of a new plant and a supply of food, starts germinating. The main root begins growing downward into the soil, and the stem grows upward.
Not that the information that they're actually saying is all that, new or interesting to me, but just to see them getting this footage back in the day, like, I wonder, because these cameras must have been huge. Again, what 1949? Like, they were definitely film cameras that they were using. They must have, like, packed it against glass, right? Like, that's how they're shooting it. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how they did all this. The technique that they're using is so advanced, or at least it feels advanced. It does not feel like we knew how to film this back in the day. Back in 1949, we already had, time lapses of seeds growing where it shows their roots and everything. This is just wild.
A root grows in length only at its tip. As a root grows, it may change direction and pass around obstacles in its path.
Again, this must have been so mind-blowing to see, though. Like, I have only grown numb to this because I've seen a million time lapses now. But, like, yeah, to really get to see a plant grow like this, I mean, it's cool to see for me even now, like, even after I've seen all these time lapses. But for somebody who's never seen a plant move like this, or like, this must have given so much understanding, like, not even like, oh wow, that's cool, but like, oh, like that's how it works, like, I feel like so many people were discovering stuff through this, through like filming back in the day.
Soon branch roots begin developing. Water and minerals are moving from the soil through the roots into the stem. Besides connecting the plant with this source of raw materials, roots anchor the plant in the soil.
Every single frame we're seeing is probably like a couple of hours or something, but the camera is like, it's bobbing up and down. That might have just been like how they edited film together back in the day, but it doesn't seem like the camera taking this was perfectly stable the entire time. But I can't figure out how they did this still. This must have been a pane of glass though, right? Like they must have, it just must be dirt against a glass.
While the roots are developing, the stem is also growing. The stem pushes up through the soil. Soon the leaves begin unfolding. Once it is above the soil, the top of the plant is exposed to light. In the presence of light, green pigments develop in the stem and leaves. These pigments are called chlorophyll.
It literally sounded like the voice actor had to like spend a second to figure out how to say chlorophyll. Like you can hear him pause. This substance is known as chlorophyll. But again, that's crazy because, you know, I only am familiar with chlorophyll because I went to public school. And it's like, did the person who voiced this, did they go to public school and learn about chlorophyll? Like, I doubt it.
As the plant grows, water and minerals continue passing up through the roots into the stem and onto the different cells of the plant. In the cells, these raw materials from the soil may be used or they may accumulate. The nodding movements of the plant that we are seeing are caused by unequal rates of growth on the various sides of the stem and leaves. The stem of the plant leaves.
This is actually crazy. You can see the plant like contract when it gets dry, and then it fills back up once the researchers or whoever was filming this watered it. It's so cool that you can see the pattern of its behavior, but also you can't see them actually watering it. This is gonna sound strange, but I've watched enough time lapses of plants growing and stuff just on YouTube to know that like you're always gonna see like the soil getting wet when you water it, or you know, water hitting the plant, but this is done so well that you don't see any of that. It really does feel flawless. It's just incredible that they had the ability, the know-how to film this so well back in the day, back in, you know, 1949. We're just on the verge of even having color. It really makes me appreciate these things all the more when you see their skill level, that like there's still something worth appreciating about these, even if the, you know, the resolution of the image isn't that great. Like the actual image itself is spectacular and took so much effort.
Away from the side that is growing most rapidly.
Yeah, you just saw it again, like the plant shrivels, like then it fills back out when it gets water. That's so, but you can't see anyone watering it or anything. It's just, it's impressive.
The pea plant grows in height as the tip of its stem elongates. As the stem grows longer, new leaves appear. Leaves appear only...
Like this camera is moving up, so like they must have had it on a rig where it moved up. Because I don't know what the amount of time that's passing. It feels like I'm watching like a frame is an hour. I'm just really impressed with whoever was filming all this.
Only once on any given part of the plant. At a certain stage of maturity, usually about 40 days for the pea, flower buds begin to appear.
I'm also trying to think of what scenario people would have watched this in. Like, is this like you watch this in school? I think that's the only thing I can think of is like a teacher wheels this out for like 6th grade or whatever to teach these kids like earth science. That's the only use application I can think of for this video. This is such a YouTube sort of content for me, you know, like no one's going to like a theater to watch this, you know, no one, it's only like 10 minutes long. This must have been shown to students in schools, is the only thing I can imagine.
One part of the developing flower is the young pod, which is growing here. The pod is the fruit of the pea. seeds are developing inside the pod.
Oh, that was actually crazy to see how fast this pea pod just developed out of that flower.
Now that we've seen a life cycle in the growth of a living pea plant, we shall study some of the processes inside the plant that have made it possible. Here are 4.
Okay, here's an animation. So this is also equally as impressive. This was 1949, right? Like, there are so many moving parts in this animation, and like, I know a thing or two about animation because I have to do it for my own videos, but I have no idea how they would have animated this back in the day, because it must have all still been on film. They must have just like hand drawn a lot of this. I don't know the method for doing this, but that's how you know they were really doing complex stuff back in the day, when you still like don't fully understand how they did this.
4 of the principal processes going on.
Like, look at every single one of these dots needed to be drawn. They were probably all on the same plate or something, but yeah, somebody was hand drawing the motion of all of these dots. There wasn't anything else to be drawing this motion besides somebody's hand. So somebody needed to go in on every single one of these. It just, you forget about that when you watch stuff. Especially today, like, animations are so much easier. But like, this probably took like probably a full week just for this like one sequence, maybe more. I would say a week, but I wouldn't be surprised if this took longer.
To simplify our presentation,
oh my god, now it got even more detailed. I wouldn't shy away from doing this sort of animation even today. Even with like a computer being able to do all this. Maybe this was easier to do by hand than by computer, but there is no way I would animate this on After Effects today. Again, why we watch stuff like this is because you get, forms of animation that have been forgotten since, the arrival of After Effects. There's so much interesting stuff preserved, so much artistry preserved in all these old films that we get to enjoy for the first and last time here.
We will identify each action separately. The white dots represent dissolved minerals and water moving from the soil to all parts of the plant.
My thinking for this animation is that they just did like one frame up and they just repeated it over and over and made it look like a loop when it really wasn't. It was just one frame of movement. That's pretty easy, but again, like all those other dots, I don't know. Dang, they just keep zooming in too. That's like, that's another hard trick, especially on film and stuff. I'm really having my mind blown.
Ovals represent carbon dioxide gas from the air. Carbon dioxide is used by green parts of the plant in making sugar. In this process, oxygen is liberated. The black ovals represent substances, mostly water, escaping from the leaves.
This is so funny because these little black things, they look like little bugs, like this is definitely not how air looks when it exits the leaf. It doesn't just crawl around, like they clearly didn't understand like aerodynamics well enough to animate it accurately, but it still gets the idea across that something's coming out and something's going in. It's just, this is so funny. I wonder who did these animations. You couldn't have just gone up to some random guy. You must have gone to like a studio. And when did Disney even get started? In like the 30s, or right? Like, this could have been Disney animated. I just don't know who else would have even done animation back then. Maybe I'll wait for the credits. We'll see.
And the black dots represent sugar and other foods made in the plant. The movement of raw materials is mostly in an upward direction from the soil, while the movement of the manufactured foods is mainly downward through the plant.
What's so crazy is that, like, all the information is perfectly accurate. Like, we haven't learned a single additional fact about plants in the 100 years since this was made. It's just we've learned different ways of illustrating it, which is, again, funny to watch. Just like all the same information displayed in different ways, especially for me, because I have to make information displayed in similar ways for Atlas Pro. It's so funny to see them trying to explain the same things that I will have to explain in my next video,
So, we see that the top of the plant depends upon the roots for water and minerals, and the roots depend upon the tops for manufactured sugars. Up through the stem go the water and minerals, shown here again as white dots. These pass through tissues near the center of the stem.
The xylem and the phloem, right? That's what these are called. I forget which one goes which way, but one of these pathways is the xylem and one of them is the phloem. that's really all I have to say about that, is that I remember these phrases, but I don't remember much else.
Food manufactured by the plant, the black dots, passes through tissues near the outside of the stem. In this cross-section of a stem, we see again the tissue shown in white that conduct water and minerals from the roots, and those shown in black that conduct manufactured foods to all parts of the plant. As cells between these two tissues multiply, these tissues increase in size.
I like how they had no ability to transition between two things besides fading it, though, because that's a problem that even I have run into with animation. Is there's no way, like, they're trying to make it bigger and look like it's growing and expanding, but they can't do that all in one shot. They have to fade from a smaller little, cell to a bigger one, and they're just fading on top of each other. That was their solution to the problem. Is like, how do we make it grow and get bigger, but we can't actually animate or change in each individual drawing, and it's just to fade in and out on the animation. It's just like I use the same trick every day, every time I animate something.
This causes growth in the diameter of the stem. Any green part of the plant can manufacture sugar.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about somebody hand animating all these little dots traveling in the air. And the more you look at one individual one as it moves, the more you can see oh, that was definitely handmade. Each one of these has a little character to it, and you can tell somebody was like, oh, well, this one's gonna go over here and everything. It's you can see it. Oh, this is an even better shot. Yeah, just pick one and watch it. Watch how it moves and watch how it its actual shape changes as it moves.
The green part of the plant, in the presence of energy from sunlight, uses carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil in making.
This is such a complex frame we're looking at right now. I'm trying to think of how long it took the person to make this one frame or this one sequence, because there's how many of these little air cells are moving around on screen right now? 100 right now. This just would have taken so long to make. This would still take so long to make. This would take if I had to make this for an Atlas Pro video, I would probably say, let's just spend one day making this. If I could make this at the end of one full day of work animating, I'd say that was a good productive day. So I can only imagine how long it would have taken somebody back in the day to hand draw this.
The green part of the plant, in the presence of energy from sunlight, uses carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil in making sugar. This process is called photosynthesis. Since green leaves constitute most of the green part of the plant, most of the sugar is made in the leaves.
That checks out.
All the cells of the plant may use this sugar in the making of other kinds of food. After the pea plant has been growing for about 40 days, it reaches the stage of growth and flowers begin forming. We shall show in animated drawings some of the actions taking place in the flower.
Oh, see, even fading those layers out, right? So what they must have done is they must have made one layer with the finished flower. Maybe they're fading in these additional flowers. Maybe the back layer is the finished flower, and then they just have these individual ones that they're fading in later. I don't know. I'm so interested by how they used to do animations, because the logic is the same, but the tools are different, you still have to work in different layers, and that gives you the ability to change and, make things appear where they're covered up and everything. But what did they fade between? I know how to do this on a computer, but I do not know how to do this physically. And I guarantee you they did not have computers to do this when they were making this. So it's so interesting to try and figure out this stuff.
Are a female part and several male parts. The large vertical part shown is the tip of the female organ called the pistil. Around this tip...
I don't know if I'm going to have to blur this or not. There is a very big male and female part of the screen. I hope YouTube doesn't catch that.
Are the smaller male parts called stamens. At the end of each stamen is a pollen
All right, so now we are very close up on the stamen, and this is pollen, is that what it's
sac called the anther.
The anther.
Inside
I remember
are
learning the
pollen
anther.
grains.
When the anther matures, it splits open, freeing the pollen grains.
Oh, you could tell these little pollens were hand animated too. That's so funny. Like, they move with such character, you know? Like, if I animated these on a computer, I would just say, you know, start here, end here. They'd be traveling in a straight line. Maybe they'd move based on how I decided, but they would always have this, like, certainty of motion, whereas these are kind of just, like, bobbing around. Like, you can certainly tell somebody drew them.
Some of the pollen reaches the tip of the pistil.
But they drew them well, too. They look like how particles actually move. Like, they... whoever drew this must have had some understanding of, like, I don't know, airflow.
This is pollination. Once a pollen grain contacts the pistil, it begins germinating and producing a tube that grows through the pistil into one of its ovules.
Even like these lines drawing, like that is something that's sort of easy now with a computer. Like, I can't get a line to draw itself on Premiere. I have to go to After Effects and use the trim paths effect in order to get lines to draw themselves. Here, I imagine this might have actually been something that would have been easier to do by hand, because all you have to do is like take a photo, draw the line a little bit more, take another photo, draw the line, take a photo, and then you have it draw itself. Like, it seems like a simple effect until you think about it and you realize that, like, you can't just tell a line to draw itself in this shape so perfectly. You have to do some sort of, like, hand animation.
Here, the union of sperm and egg occurs.
This is a fantastic animation, though. I feel like I'm learning so much. I feel like this is as equal of value as any animation you're going to see on YouTube today made by a random person. Like, this is actually of higher production value than anything you're seeing made by a YouTuber now. There's certain YouTubers who go up and above, but your standard YouTube channel is not exceeding the standard set in front of us right here.
This is fertilization. The fertilized egg in each ovule develops into an embryo plant. The mature ovule containing the embryo is a seed.
Why is he saying it like that? The ovule and the embryo.
So we have seen a flowering plant growing and have identified its principal parts, 6 in all. 4 of the 6 can be seen here: the seed, the roots, the stem, and the leaves. The flower and the fruit containing the seeds develop...
Yeah, like that move, that camera move, right? At the end of that shot, when it looked like somebody picked up the camera, but you still have to imagine that every frame is like an hour.
Here.
So,
The seed.
so how did they just move it up so smoothly? Right? Like, I am not very familiar with old school time-lapse photography. It just seems that some of the things I'm seeing seem like very difficult or like near impossible, especially for like the amount of effort you would need to put in versus the reward. Like, why even move this camera at the very end of the shot, you know? They did, and for some reason the time-lapse is not broken when they move the camera.
Flower and the fruit containing the seeds.
Yeah, right there.
Develop
Oh my god, I don't know. I don't get it.
stage.
We have seen how the leaves unfold as the plant develops, and have learned that the green parts begin the work of manufacturing sugars. We have learned...
I like that this part of the video is just a summary of the other part of the video. It's only a 10-minute long video, and we're spending the last 2 minutes summarizing the last 6 minutes.
that by using these sugars, all living cells of the plant can...
Which, like, again, is also a very YouTube thing to do. So, like, this fits into the YouTube aesthetic, or editing aesthetic at least.
can make their own food.
Because, yeah, it's exactly a 10-minute long video, too. I wonder the reason why they did that. Obviously, we know why people do that on YouTube. It's just funny that this is repeating that exact formula like 100 years before the algorithm was even a thing.
We have seen, too, the work of flowers, the reproductive organ of plants, and have learned that inside the flowers, pollination takes place. Following growth of the pollen tubes, fertilization occurs. The fertilized egg grows into an embryo, and the ovules become seeds. The pod or fruit of the pea plant develops from the pistil of the flower.
Yeah, he's literally just summarizing what we just learned a second ago. I don't even know if this is like worth showing you guys again. I guess it's worth it for the footage alone. Like somebody put so much effort into this footage that like they deserve us to watch it all the way to the end.
Flower. Inside the growing pod are the developing seeds. Thus, we have completed our study of the life cycle of a typical green flowering plant.
Hang on, you can see this little fly though. That's like the one tell. I just want to go back a little. But you can see this fly popping around right on the upper right hand. This fly, the fly right there, right in the corner. Do you see it popping around? That's and then it disappears. That's, oh wait, is it over here now? Oh, and it just disappeared again. That's so funny.
And it is upon such flowering.
Oh, then it's back.
Many other
That's like a lost aspect of videos like this. It's just like, I don't know, the flies that flew into the room that you couldn't get rid of. So they just end up in the shot like little beads bouncing back and forth. That's so funny. Because you know the guy who filmed it was so pissed when he saw these flies. He's like, oh, they ruined the shot. They reveal that it's a time lapse, right? Like the rest of the footage actually looked so good that it looked almost real-time growth. But you can tell because of that fly popping around that it's definitely a time lapse.
The life cycle has involved several processes, but mainly those by which the plant absorbs raw materials from the soil and carbon dioxide from the air and manufactures food which nourishes the plant and makes possible its growth and reproduction.
Wow, that was perfect. The life of a plant. That couldn't have summarized and explained that topic more succinctly than I think anything else. Like if you go to YouTube and you look up a video of the life of a plant, not only are you going to find a video that is 10 minutes long exactly as well, but you will find it with probably less impressive time-lapse footage and less involved animations. So that's what I'm saying is like, this has so much more value than people recognize, even though it's old and even though the music is weird and the voice actor kind of has a weird voice. The actual information in this is still as pertinent, as valuable as ever, really. The value and the work that was put in is equally as valuable as it ever has been. And again, that's why I like watching stuff like this. And now you've seen it too. Now we all understand the life of a plant. So thank you for watching. I think we're going to cut to black.